Good evening and welcome to an evening of carols with Coryllion Choir. My name is Corey Lovell and I am the founder and musical director. We welcome you this evening to this virtual concert as we're not able to put on a live concert in a venue. Due to the pandemic this year, we've all experienced the unsettling and uncertainty of 2020. However, we hope that this concert tonight will bring you that Christmas joy and festive feeling. The concert consists of carols, audience carols and secular readings read by members of the choir. We've been preparing for this concert since October, where we began to meet fortnightly under strict socially distanced guidelines. We're raising money this evening for the Lost Chord charity, a charity founded in 1999, which believes in using music as a stimuli to support those with dementia. You can support us in supporting this charity tonight by using the link found on our concert poster to donate money to this wonderful charity. If you have difficulty finding this, do contact us, or you can contact the charity directly using their website. All that's left for me to say this evening is to sit back, relax and enjoy the concert.
Christmas by John Betjeman. The bells of waiting Advent ring, the tortoise stove is lit again, and lamp oil light across the night has caught the streaks of winter rain in many a stained glass window sheen, from Crimson Lake to Hooker's Green. The holly in the windy hedge, and round the manor house the yew will soon be stripped to deck the ledge, the altar, font and arch and pew, so that the villagers can say, the church looks nice on Christmas Day. Provincial public houses blaze, and corporation tramcars clang. On lighted tenements I gaze, where paper decorations hang. And bunting in the red town hall says, Merry Christmas to you all. And London shops on Christmas Eve are strung with silver bells and flowers, as hurrying clerks the city leave to pigeon-haunted classic towers, and marbled clouds go scudding by the many-steepled London sky. And girls in slacks remember Dad, and oafish louts remember Mum, and sleepless children's hearts are glad, and Christmas morning bells say, come, even to shining ones who dwell safe in the Dorchester Hotel. And is it true? And is it true, this most tremendous tale of all, seen at a stained glass window's hue, a baby in an ox's stall, the maker of the stars and sea, became a child on earth for me? And is it true? For if it is, no loving fingers tying strings around those tissued fripperies, the sweet and silly Christmas things, bath salts and inexpensive scent, and hideous tie so kindly meant. No love that in a family dwells, no carolling in frosty air, nor all the steeples shaking bells can with this simple truth compare, that God was man in Palestine and lives today in bread and wine.
12 Days of Christmas, a correspondence. 25th of December. My dearest darling, that partridge in that lovely little pear tree. What an enchanting, romantic, poetic present. Bless you and thank you, your deeply loving Emily. 26th of December. My dearest, darling Edward, the 2 turtle doves arrived this morning and are cooing away in the pear tree as I write. I'm so touched and grateful. With undying love, as always, Emily. 27th of December. My darling Edward, you do think of the most original presents. Whoever thought of sending anybody 3 French hens? Do they really come all the way from France? It's a pity that we have no chicken coops, but I expect we'll find some. Thank you anyway, they're lovely. Your loving Emily. 28th of December. Dearest Edward, what a surprise. 4 calling birds arrived this morning. They are very sweet, even if they do call rather loudly. They make telephoning impossible. But I expect they'll calm down when they get used to their new home. Anyway, I'm very grateful. Of course I am. Love from Emily. 29th of December. Dearest Edward, the postman has just delivered 5 most beautiful gold rings, 1 for each finger and all fitting perfectly. A really lovely present. Lovelier in a way than birds, which do take rather a lot of looking after. The 4 that arrived yesterday are still making a terrible row, and I'm afraid none of us got much sleep last night. Mummy says she wants to use the rings to wring their necks. She's only joking, I think, though I know what she means, but I love the rings, bless you. Love, Emily. 30th of December. Dear Edward, whatever I expected to find when I opened the front door this morning, it certainly wasn't 6 socking great geese laying eggs all over the doorstep. Frankly, I rather hoped you would stop sending me birds. We have no room for them, and they have already ruined the croquet lawn. I know you meant well, but let's call a halt, shall we? Love, Emily. 31st of December. Edward, I thought I said no more birds, but this morning I woke up to find no less than 7 swans all trying to get into our tiny goldfish pond. I'd rather not think what happened to the goldfish. The whole house seems to be full of birds, to say nothing of what they leave behind them. Please, please stop. Your Emily. 1st of January. Frankly, I think I prefer the birds. What am I to do with 8 milkmaids and their cows? Is this some kind of joke? If so, I'm afraid I don't find it very amusing. Emily. 2nd of January. Look here, Edward, this has gone far enough. You say you're sending me 9 ladies dancing. All I can say is that judging from the way they dance, they are certainly not ladies. The village just isn't accustomed to seeing a regiment of shameless hussies with nothing on but their lipstick cavorting around our green. And it's Mummy and I that get blamed. If you value your friendship, which I do less and less, kindly stop this ridiculous behaviour at once. Emily. 3rd of January. As I write this letter, 10 disgusting old men are prancing about all over what used to be the garden before the geese and the swans and the cows got at it, and several of them, I notice, are making inexcusable liberties with the milkmaids. Meanwhile, the neighbours are trying to have us evicted, I shall never speak to you again. Emily. 4th of January. This is the last straw. You know I detest bagpipes. The place has now become something between a menagerie and a madhouse, and a man from the council has just declared it unfit for habitation. At least Mummy has been spared this last outrage. They took her away yesterday afternoon in an ambulance. I hope you're satisfied. 5th of January. Sir, our client, Miss Emily Wilbraham, instructs me to inform you that with the arrival on her premises at 7:30 this morning of the entire percussion section of the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra and several of their friends, she has no course left open to her but to seek an injunction to prevent your importuning her further. I am making arrangements for the return of much assorted livestock. I am, sir, yours faithfully, G. Creep, Solicitor at Law.
Angels Before the Paling of the Stars by Christina Rossetti. Before the paling of the stars, before the winter morn, before the earliest cockcrow, Jesus Christ was born. Born in a stable, cradled in a manger, in the world his hands had made, born a stranger. Priest and king lay fast asleep in Jerusalem. Young and old lay fast asleep in crowded Bethlehem. Saint and angel, ox and ass, kept a watch together before the Christmas daybreak in the winter weather. Jesus on his mother's breast, in a stable cold, spotless Lamb of God was he, shepherd of the fold. Let us kneel with Mary maid, with Joseph bent and hoary, with saint and angel, ox and ass, to hail the King of glory.
Journey of the Magi by T.S. Eliot. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camelmen cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a water mill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel. 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information. So we continued and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again. But set down this. Were we led all the way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our palaces, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here, in the old dispensation with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death.
Nativity. Surely is recalling her son's Brian disastrous school nativity play debut. Our Brian was about 8 or 9 and the school had given him up. The teachers just said he was Luke the Loop and that was that. I agreed with him. But the headmaster was fascinated by our Brian. He like studied him. He said to me, "There's no malice in the child, no malice whatsoever, but it would appear that Brian has no concept of consequences. I think what we have to do with Brian is to try and give him more responsibility. And so I've decided to give him the star part of the nativity play this year." Well, when Brian learned he'd got the part of Joseph, he was made up with himself. Ah, God love him. He thought he'd been picked because he was a great actor. And I couldn't say anything because it was working, you see, this psychology. All the time he's rehearsing the nativity play and his behaviour is fantastic. And the headmaster's making up with him. I'm made up with him. The teachers are made up with him. And he's made up with himself. He's practicing every night in his room. We are weary travellers on our way to Bethlehem, and my wife is having a baby, and we need to rest at the inn for the night. Well, the day of the show, I got down to the school. The play started, and it was lovely. You know, all the little angels came on, and they were all sly little waves to their mums. Then it was our Brian's entrance. He comes on, and he's pulling the donkey behind him. It's like this hobby horse on wheels. And perched on top of it is this little girl taking the part of the Virgin Mary. And she's dressed beautifully, you know. And Mother really dolled her up to be the part. And she's giving a little wave to her mum. So Brian gives the donkey a bit of a tug because he's taking it dead serious and he doesn't believe they should be waving to their mums. He's up there and he's acting like he might win the Oscar. You know, he's miming, giving aid to the donkey, and he's patting it on the head. Well, the headmaster turned round and smiled at me. I think he was as proud of our Brian as I was. Well, Brian gets to the door of the inn and he goes, knock, knock, knock. And the little innkeeper appears. Our Brian starts, "We are weary travellers on our way to Bethlehem, and my wife is having a baby, and we need to rest for the night in the inn." So the little fella playing the innkeeper pipes up, "You cannot stay at the inn because the inn is full up and there's no room at the inn." And then our Brian is supposed to say something like, "Well, we must go and find a lowly cattle shed and stay in there." Then he's supposed to go off pulling the donkey and the Virgin Mary behind him. But he didn't. Well, I don't know if it's the Virgin Mary getting up our Brian's nose because she spent the whole scene waving to her mother, or whether it was just that our Brian suddenly realised that the part of Joseph wasn't as big as it had been cracked up to be. But whatever it was, instead of going off pulling the donkey, he suddenly turned to the little innkeeper and yelled at him, "Fall up, but we booked." Well, the poor little innkeeper didn't know what day of the week it was. He looked all around the hall for someone to rescue him, and his bottom lip's beginning to tremble, and our Brian's going, "Full up, I've got the wife waiting outside with the donkey, and she's expecting a baby any minute now. There's snow everywhere in 6-foot drifts, and you're trying to tell me that you're full up? Well, the top brass on the front row are beginning to look a bit uncomfortable. They're beginning to turn and look at the headmaster, and our Brian's giving a perfect imitation of his father on a bad day, and is berating anything that dares move. The little innkeeper's lips is going 10 to the dozen, and the Virgin Mary's in floods of tears on the donkey. Well, the innkeeper finally grasps that the script is well out of the window, and that he has to do something about our Brian. So he steps forward and he says, "Listen, mate, listen. I was only joking. We have got room, really. You can come in if you want." And with that, the three of them disappeared into the inn. End of nativity play, and the end of our Brian's acting career.
Christ Child by Henry Treese. Warm as a little mouse he lay, hay kept him from the winter's harm. Bleating of puzzled lamb he heard, and voices from the nearby farm. His mother's eyes were bent on him, as to her frozen breast he clung. His father stopped the draughty cracks, and sang a merry herding song. Who would have thought upon that hour those little hands might stay a plague, those eyes would quell a multitude, that voice would still a rising wave? Only the omens of the night, the lowing ox, the moaning tree, hinted the cruelty to come. A raven croaked, Gethsemane.